Good morning, everybody. Jason Stapleton here for the Trading Underground. Welcome, all you underground traders. This is the first Ustream broadcast that we're doing, and my expectation, my hope, is to be able to do this quite regularly, maybe even every single day. But what I want to do is come in. We're going to talk a little bit about the markets here as the market is opening, and then we're also going to talk a little bit about the news events and some of those types of things. I've got all my charts up here. I can quickly reference those if I need to. Right now, U.S. market's set to gap a little bit higher. E-mini S&Ps, which is what most people trade here at Underground Trading, is about 16 quarter. And the close yesterday was about 10 half. So we've got a little bit of a gap upward, which would in some cases signal that the market had an intention to go higher. We are still, however, in a bearish trend on the market overall. The market's now opening. And so I would be cautious about any long opportunities right now. If we get back down into that gap filled, I mean, naturally there are opportunities to play the gap fill. Just be cautious because the market hasn't really shown any indication that it intends to go higher. It has shown every indication that it is still under pressure to the downside. So we'll be watching that. Now, if I switch over, I apologize for not looking at the camera, and take a look at the euro. The euro, banging it out to a 4-hour here, is still very bullish. I think the next stop on this for anybody looking for major areas of resistance is going to be up around 43.80s. They're very, very high up there. We've got a long haul to go yet. Doesn't mean there's not opportunities to hop on a trend here, but clearly market has been structured. Structure has been violated. We actually have previous structure support at about 141.32 on that 141.32 for those of you marking that down. And so if we come up into that zone, I believe that's also a 382 retracement. Let me go ahead and draw that sucker in there. I'm just eyeballing it here. Yep, exactly, almost right on a 382 retracement. So these are some areas to watch. 41.30s. For a potential trend continuation trade. And then, of course, if we get back above that, the next stop is probably, the next area where we're going to see some potential resistance is going to be 43. And again, all still bearish, still bearish, still bearish. Dollar heavy, basically. Looks like this may be the time for the dollar. So, looking at the pound dollar, kind of same scenario. We've had a little deeper retracement here. We have some resistance coming in at around, if I'm looking at this, come in 160.50. So between 160.20 and 160.50, you'll have some resistance in there. That's going to prove to us whether or not we're going lower or not. The key price point to watch is this area on the pound between, let me see here, 60.20 and 60.80. So, about 50, 60 pips in there that you're going to be watching for that area. If we break 60.80, the indication is that we're going higher and that this bear trend that we've been in may be coming to an end because we'll be breaking structure to the upside. Until that happens, not so much. So that's what we're looking at there. Now, interesting note last night, McConnell, talking about how he put forth the idea that the U.S. could solve this debt crisis issue that they're having by simply just Congress signing off and allowing the president the opportunity to raise the debt ceiling on his own without the approval of Congress, or with signing off on Congress. He could basically tell Congress, hey, I want to raise the debt ceiling, and then they could have a vote on raising the debt ceiling or not. That way they could put it to a vote without having to actually come to an agreement. Boehner must have lost his mind because that is an absolute violation of the Constitution, number one. It is Congress's responsibility to do that. And number two, why would you ever want to do that? I mean, whether you're Republican or Democrat, why would you want to turn over authority, given to the Congress by the Constitution, and give it to the president? And all it comes down to is this is the same madness that every single political leader we see has been running into over the past decade or so, and that is anytime they have to make a hard decision, let's just pass the buck. Congress doesn't want to declare war. They don't want to officially jump into a war, so they sign these binding resolutions and they give the president the authority to go ahead and move without actually taking the step, without actually committing, without actually giving a yay or nay that says, yes, I am for the war, I am against the war. They just go ahead and they just push that off onto the president. Now we're looking at a fight to raise the debt ceiling and a concern about whether or not we're going to be able to, whether or not this debt ceiling is going to go up or not, and we can't come to an agreement. Republicans and Democrats cannot find middle ground here. So what do they want to do? Well, let's just pass the buck again. Instead of really forcing a vote, or instead of allowing it to lapse and eating that one, taking that one on the chin because we couldn't get the job done, we'll just pass it off to the president. That way that they can say, oh, well, it wasn't our decision. We didn't do that. And they can get away squeaky clean, because this is what a politician wants to do. He's concerned about his reelection, which you would be too. I mean, if you made your living, if your occupation was bureaucrat, then you would do everything you could to keep your job. And that means never having to take a stand and make a tough decision. It means always finding the middle ground, always finding the lukewarm, always taking the position that doesn't require that you engage too much or go too much to one side or the other, but that you constantly find this little lukewarm barrier where you can step in and say, well, I was for this, I was against that, I voted for it before I voted against it. We all know the deal with that. Here's the critical piece, and this is the last thing I'll say today before we get started. It is shameful and absolutely a complete, what is the word I'm looking for? It's almost a lie. It's dishonest. It's probably the best word for it. To suggest that America will default on its debt if we don't raise the debt ceiling. Everything you read, and you can tell that these guys are being dishonest. Everybody in the media is being dishonest because they know it's untruthful what they're saying. They're saying that if the debt ceiling is not raised, the U.S. could potentially default. It's the could potentially default thing that gets you. Because, you see, they don't say will default, because they know that's not true. They say could potentially default because they know that's scary. That elicits emotional response. Here's what I want to tell you. Any idiot can look at a balance sheet and tell that there is enough revenue coming in to meet all of the necessary functions of government. That is to pay the people who work for the government, to pay the debt obligation, to pay the military, and it looks like there's enough in there to pay Social Security checks as well. What there is not enough money for is all of the unnecessary spending that government does each and every year. The entitlement programs and the government programs that no longer serve a purpose and that are fraud, waste, and abuse that exists. There's not enough to pay that in government. And so if the debt ceiling doesn't get raised, they're going to have to cut back a healthy chunk on some of those type of programs. And you say, well, Jason, it's, people rely on those entitlements in order to live. And ladies and gentlemen, just because you rely on something does not mean that you are entitled to it. Just because you need a government handout or a government subsidy in order to exist doesn't mean that you are entitled to it. I'll give you for example. Let's say that you are having trouble paying your mortgage. You've come on hard times, you're out of work. And I am your neighbor. And you're telling me the story about how hard it's been for you, and I say, you know what, Tommy, I want to help you out. I've got a little extra money socked away. Let me go ahead and pay your mortgage for a little while. I'm going to give it to you. You don't have to do anything for it. Just go out there. I want you to look for a job. Just get out there and try and make something happen. And in the meantime, don't worry, because I got your back. And you think, man, what a relief. Oh, this is such a wonderful thing. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. And you go out and you're doing your thing, and I'm making the mortgage payment every month, and finding work's hard, which it is for a lot of people. Finding work's difficult. And so, you're in that room where you're just like, there's looking and looking and looking, and finally I come to you several months down the road and I say, hey, listen, I know I told you I would make your mortgage payment for a while, but it's really starting to impact my pocketbook. And my business isn't doing as well as it was before. We've slipped a little bit. My kid's gotten sick or whatever, and so I'm not going to be able to pay your mortgage anymore. You're going to have to fend for yourself, and I apologize for that, but I just can't do anything about it. If I don't, I'm going to go broke. Would anyone look at that and say, well, no, you owe me? Would any of you look at that and say, no, Jason, you owe me. You promised to pay my mortgage? No, you wouldn't do that. You would say, you know what, I really appreciate the help when I really needed it. And I don't know what I'm going to do now, but I'm going to have to figure out something, because obviously this gravy train has come to an end. And guys, that is the subsidy market that we live in, except people who receive these entitlements, and we call them entitlements even though people aren't really entitled to them. We receive these entitlements and with an expectation. Someone saying, well, I'm owed. Because the government has offered this to me, I'm now entitled to it. It's mine, even though I didn't work for it, even though I didn't earn it, even though someone else is being taxed in order to pay for it. It's mine, and no one should ever be forced to not receive their disability check. No one should ever be forced to not receive their welfare check. No one should ever be forced to not receive their Medicare or Medicaid reimbursement. And the simple fact, traders, is that just like your neighbor who provides for you when he can, when the bills come due, and when you're staring at an economy and when you're staring at a government that is so grossly overspent and overextended itself, then the appropriate thing to do is to say, we would love to be able to help you out. We would love to be able to meet these obligations for you, but we simply cannot. And for the time being, you're going to have to fend for yourself. It's not easy. It's hard. Nobody wants to have to do that. But that is the situation that we currently find ourselves in here in America. Now, don't get me started on Europe, because that's an absolute nightmare over there. For those of you who live over there, man, every time you turn around, things are getting worse over there. But that, we'll save that for another day. But that's basically where we're at here. The S&P initially rallied off of the open, and now we're starting to roll over to the downside. So we'll see what happens with it. But until next time, traders, good luck and good trading. And I will let me a little comment here. Hit me on Trading Underground. Tell me what you think of this. Was this valuable? Was it not? Did you enjoy listening to it? And of course, with the Trading Underground, this being the first, kind of the first run of this site, if there's something that you really like or something you didn't like, something you'd like to see more of or less of, some sort of function that doesn't exist that you'd like to have, let us know. Let us know how we can make it better. Our goal is to make this a community where you want to come back and where you want to engage and where you want to build your own communities, your own groups, set your own events and come for events and all of those types of things. And so we want to do a lot of really cool stuff here, and we're scratching the surface right now with what we're doing. So let me know if you've got any of that. Become my friend, Jason Stapleton. You see me on the main wire there. Just invite me, man. I'd love to. I will absolutely add you to my collection of friends here on Trading Underground. So until next time, guys, good luck and good trading. My name's Jason. I'll talk to you soon.